All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. With the Texas Rangers hovering around 500 for the bulk of this MLB season, there has been some speculation in regards to whether or not that they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And if the Rangers do indeed decide to throw in the towel, one player to keep an eye on could be starting pitcher Jacob deGrom. Now, the Rangers signed deGrom to that massive 6-year deal for $220 million after the 2022 MLB season. But the former National League Cy Young Award winner has spent more time as a spectator with the Rangers than anything else. In 3 years with the Rangers, deGrom has only made 23 starts, with the bulk of that coming this season. But here in 2025, deGrom appears to have recaptured the magic that he had when he won a pair of National League Cy Young Awards with the New York Mets. Now, so far this season, deGrom is 6-2 with an ERA of 2.19 and 80 strikeouts. And prior to deGrom's last start, which was yesterday against the White Sox, his ERA was at 2.12. And I think that's kind of fitting because 212 is the area code for the borough of Manhattan in New York City. And of course, there are some who are speculating that the Mets should look to bring deGrom back to New York City, especially after the hamstring injury that was suffered by starting pitcher Kodai Senga just last week. But would a reunion between deGrom and the Mets make sense? You think about it. deGrom's departure from the Mets was not a pretty one. Okay, he opted out of his deal as he was seeking more money and, of course, more years. That didn't come to fruition with the Mets. The Rangers gave deGrom the big bucks, and then it's one of those when he went out there and got the big deal. He never gave the Mets an opportunity to match either. Okay, now yes, Mets team owner Steve Cohen is willing to spend the big money. We have seen that. Okay, but his president of baseball operations, David Stearns, who was not with the Mets during the deGrom's time there, okay, or his departure, has never been one to give big money to pitchers. Okay, so you look at it. Yes, deGrom is having himself a renaissance year in Texas. But I'd be surprised if the Mets went after him, A, due to his injury history, along with the fact that he's owed $75 million over the next 2 years, while he also has an option for 2028 at $37 million. And I guarantee you, if Texas were to trade him, they definitely would be looking to unload his salary, which means that they would want the Mets hypothetically to pick up the bulk of that. You also think about a potential salary cap coming down the pike in Major League Baseball. And if you're a team like the Mets, you don't want to be left holding the bag for a big salary, especially with a big salary with a guy like deGrom who's injury prone. Now, all of that said, that's if the Rangers did decide to become sellers because they're only five and half games out of first place in the AL West. And we're here in mid-June. And then on top of that, Texas is just a game and a half out for that final wild card spot in the American League. And of course, adding that additional wild card spot in the American League has changed things, or the baseball period rather, it's changed things because it's given more teams life, more teams reason to believe that, hey, we have a chance to get into the postseason. So when it's all said and done for the Mets, I do think, you look at the Mets, I know that they lost their last two games, all right? But nonetheless, they have the look of a team that has all of the intentions of the world to be playing some meaningful October baseball. With that said, I do believe the Mets are going to be buyers at the trade deadline, but I'm not sure if it's going to be for another starter. I say this because they got to focus on getting some of their starters back healthy. Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas. We don't know what Frankie Montas is going to look like because he got hurt early on in spring training for the Mets, and he's got to rehab his way back. And then, of course, Senga's going to be out, get back at some point as well. Now, even if the Mets were looking for a starting pitcher, I think they would look for a cheaper option than deGrom. And again, like I said before, you got to go back to 2019, which was deGrom's last Cy Young season with the Mets, where that was the last time that he made at least 30 starts in the season. Okay, this year he's at 14 starts so far with Texas. If he were to make 16 starts, that would be his most starts since 2021 when he started 15 games that year for the Mets. So when it's all said and done, when deGrom, and you're looking at him right now, he's starting to look like the guy that won those Cy Young awards with the Mets. Okay, but with that said, it's still the ultimate gamble because when he won that last Cy Young, we're talking about 2019, that's 6 years ago, he was 30. Now he's 36. And you're talking about a guy who has a deep injury history. That is a big risk, especially with the big price tag that is attached to him. So, again, I think the Texas Rangers, if they were looking to dump salary, you know, I don't think it's going to go. I don't think we're going to see deGrom go to the Mets. I think if the Rangers did trade deGrom, they would trade him someplace, of course, but they probably have to eat some of that salary because with his injury history and his age, I don't simply just see a team that's willing to take that on whole salary and him unless they are really desperate. Like I said, David Stearns, in some senses, you could say, is the antithesis of Steve Cohen, the Mets team owner. Steve Cohen will spend the money. Doesn't mean he always wants to go out there and spend money. But David Stearns, throughout his time, is always looking for a bargain. I mean, you look at his time with Milwaukee, his time with Houston, and of course his time here with the Mets. It's one of those where, yeah, we saw the Mets spend a lot of big money on Juan Soto last offseason, but Steve Cohen's not going to go out there and do that every single year. But nonetheless, I think they're going to be prudent and find the right pieces that they feel need to keep this machinery for them together. I mean, the Mets, you're talking about them right now, best team ERA in the National League. They've been getting quality starts out of their starters, you name it. So they're at a point. I know they dropped their last two. They have still a little bit of a cushion with the Philadelphia Phillies in the East. And like I've said for the past couple of weeks, the Mets and Phillies are going to be back and forth, vying for that top spot in the NL East all season long. But nonetheless, getting back to the Mets, I just simply don't see it in the cards for them bringing Jacob deGrom back to Queens. Not saying that it can't happen, but you could put me in the category of being one that would be pleasantly surprised to see that reunion happen. But nonetheless, the Mets, they've been one of the best teams in baseball all season long. Jacob deGrom has bounced back and he's starting to look like the Cy Young Award winner that he once was. It's nice for the nostalgia, but I think at the end of the day, Jacob deGrom and the Mets are going to keep on separate paths to speak on their respective baseball journeys. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. Same could be said for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Give me that follow. I'll give you that follow right back as well. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can check us out at the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.